Aristotelian concept of eudaimonia as an approach to well-being. And so I'll invite Jenna to come. There we go. I'll spotlight you now. And there we are. Thank you, Jenna.
Hi, how are you? Can you all hear me? Hello?
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Zoom was trying to be smarter than me and say, you're still muted, and I had already pressed unmute. So hello, everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen, yes?
Yes, all good.
Beautiful. All right, yeah, and well done, Rhiannon. You said Aristotelian well. It took me quite a while into my PhD to be able to say that properly, so completely understand. All right, so I have about a 15-minute presentation today. I'm going to try to go rather quickly because I do want to cover a few different things that I think would be appropriate for the audience. And then I'm hoping to have enough time to end with a story that I'll play at the end. So Rhiannon's going to help guide me later to see if we have enough time for that. Otherwise, I'll send you to the link, but otherwise I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so hi everybody, my name is Jenna Mikas. I'm a strategic advisor with a background in engineering, sustainable architecture, and environmental intelligence. Much of my work relates to crafting creative, pragmatic solutions that balance engaging environments and experiences with health and wellness focused design internationally. I currently live and work in Brisbane, Australia, where I consult, speak, and teach while finishing my own PhD at QUT. My research builds on about 20 plus years of advisory work now, conducted with public-private clients around the world. I advise and do research in equitable design for people and planetary health, serving as a member of International Well-Building Institute's Health Equity Advisory Board, as a fellow of the Conscious Center for Design, as a speaker and advocate for groups like Engineers Without Borders, US and UK, and Green Tech International, to name a few. I'm here to talk about some of my recent work today, especially as it relates to what I've termed as designing for eudaimonia or eudaimonic design. I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the First Nation owners of the lands upon which I work, teach, and study at QUT in Brisbane, Australia, the Turrbal and Yagara people. I pay my respects to their elders, laws, and customs, and I recognize that the lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning, and that their lands were never ceded. First, it might be helpful to share a little bit about my background. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area of the United States, where I've been off and on for the past 20 years. My work and study have taken me around the Americas, Europe, and Australasia primarily. About halfway through my strategy consulting career, I fell in love with the study of the built environment and its influence on people and planet. And my work and research build off of this passion. To date, much of my work has focused on a mixture of engineering, design, and business, not the most exciting for this audience. The first decade of my career was focused on service design and change management, activities I did for the US and Australian government. As I transitioned from the first to the second decade of my work, after pursuing a master's in sustainable environmental design, I began to focus on work relating to smart or so-called smart buildings and human-focused behavior and health at small consulting firms. I now advise on responsible design for health and well-being in my consultancy called the Euda Group, pictured at the bottom right, based on Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia. More on that later. I have an educational background in engineering and business, architecture, and design. I'm currently in my final year of pursuing my PhD at QUT, where I have the opportunity to combine my transdisciplinary interests and focus on health-based design of people and planet, as a member of Professor Marcus Foth's Urban Informatics Research Group, a group that explores wicked problems that cut across subjects relating to people, place, and technology. One area that I've begun introducing into my work and research over the past 2 years is philosophy, specifically Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia. Now, what exactly is eudaimonia? If you're not familiar with it, I wasn't about 6 years ago. It literally means you, which means good or health, plus daimon, which is your true self. And it's most commonly compared to words such as happiness or fulfillment, but it's more than that. The word eudaimonia originated with Plato, or Plato, depending upon how you pronounce his name, in the 4th century, but it was developed most by his student Aristotle, pictured here. Aristotle considered eudaimonia to relate more to human flourishing, when people act as their best selves. And as I found from my research, when people act as their best selves and are their best selves, they tend to not just be better, but do better. Recent research highlights the ability to design environments for aspects of physical, mental, and social health. I propose designing spaces or conditions for eudaimonia as a means for improved health and humanity, basically designing environments to prompt people to be their best selves. I brought this concept to the built environment as a new paradigm for health-based design. First, when I created my consultancy, the Euda Group, and now in my academic research. So side note, while much of my work and outside research focus on a variety of asset types and demographics, my PhD project explores how to design for eudaimonic well-being with and for older adults in the home. That's the case study that I'm focusing on in this talk today. Now for some of the natural and built environmental challenges that factor into designing for human and planetary health, especially when considering older adults at home. Recent news and TED Talks abound that discuss the inextricable link between climate change and public health. Two recent articles highlight climate change warming trends and their health links. The first discusses the problematized issue, which was from about, I think, 2 months ago. And then this other one that just came up a couple of days ago talks about how that approach has been used as a logical motivator in light of this week's COP26 summit talks, spreading awareness on how a healthy planet spurs healthy people, and in turn, how a sick planet causes sick people. That's the natural environment's link to health and why climate change is seen as the biggest global threat of the 21st century. What about the built environment? Over the past year and a half, we felt the significant impact of COVID-19 on our lives and the importance of our built environment in our health and wellness. Over 98% of the people on Earth spend 90% of their lifetimes in buildings or some kind of protective structures. According to researchers out of Harvard, buildings can make you sick or they can keep you well. What if we consider designing environments for thriving health and overarching well-being? What would that look like? And what would that look like for some of the more extraordinary occupants and demographics, especially as we enter a period of extreme population aging in which people are living longer, are more diverse, and more technically savvy. In my work, I explore this demographic not only to help address international challenges such as population aging, address health and well-being inequalities, and promote more respectful design, but I'm also looking at it as more because of the understanding that designing with them, really engaging with and listening to their lived experience shows from research that basically if you do it right and you listen to them, then you can design for all demographics and therefore have the potential for greater, more universal impact. So how can homes be designed to help curate an environment that supports optimal health and wellness for older adults? That's the question I'm exploring. One potential answer I'm exploring in particular is designing around Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia. Alan Waterman of the University of Penn asserts that psychologists and other social scientists have a significant role to play in evaluating normative questions as to how people ought to live. In his The Best Within Us book and related publications, he and other positive psychologists explore how to design for eudaimonic well-being. I'm most interested in understanding the potential in designing proactively for eudaimonic well-being in the built environment, actively encouraging people to be their best selves. And I'm doing this by considering core philosophy and positive psychology concepts centered around things like independence, agency, and self-determination. So positioning my research problem, I look at some design shortcomings and corresponding aims. So I first begin with the what, designing for comprehensive elements of health and well-being. How, considering psychology-based principles and using creative methods. Who, emphasizing the value in designing with the older adults. And why, all to connect theory with practice. So I've spent the last year in close engagement with older adults in Australia, focusing on co-designing for eudaimonic well-being at home. To do so, I recruited and am finishing working with older adults, as well as designers and design professionals throughout Australia, doing all work 100% virtually from Brisbane. In the co-design work, I collaborated with participants to consider designing for elements of philosophy via eudaimonia and core psychological needs. And I centered the design work around interviews and creative methods as provocations. Given that I had to redesign my research to allow for 100% virtual engagement due to COVID, I connected with industry and academic contacts who specialize in remote engagement, and I redesigned my research approach accordingly. So here's my phased approach. Phase 1 focused on exploring interrelationships between older adults and their spaces using interviews and cultural probes. Phase 2 was more about visualizing and defining a eudaimonic well-being environment via co-design workshops. And phase 3, where I am now, is all about finalizing the final framework and design guidelines using group interviews. To do this, I have used Zoom to conduct the interviews, and I've shipped off physical cultural probe design packages to participants to complete in their homes in situ. And then in phase 2, I conducted virtual workshops via Zoom using the online whiteboard platform Miro and building on data captured in phase 1. Enabling the participants to see what we were working through as we talked was felt to be empowering by many, especially as they attended from the comfort of their homes, something necessary given the prevalence of lockdown in many areas of Australia where participants lived. We are now in phase 3, validating elements of the framework, again using both Zoom and Miro. The feedback on the process and its effects thus far have been incredibly positive. Participants have found the process genuinely interesting and feel more satisfied and motivated to improve their environments and themselves. Now, I'm not able to share the full framework and principles with you today, but I can give you a sneak peek of some of the high-level trends we're noticing as of now. I recently came across some mind map images by Paul Foreman when searching for visuals relating to themes encountered thus far in my research. Some of the themes include passion meets purpose, personal growth, learning, loving, and living, and recognizing the present moment, as well as natural joys and marveling at the beauty of the planet. This idea of gratitude mixed with environmental awareness or stewardship was a theme I found particularly intriguing, especially considering recent natural environment for human health research. This image from a Medium article back from this past January highlights the benefit of planet-centric design. It suggests that we transition from human-centered design to more planet-centric design. By doing so, we not only improve the planet's flora and fauna, but we also improve human health. What it doesn't say is that when humans are healthier and designed for with eudaimonic or flourishing health in mind, they often want to do better for the climate, thereby further symbiotically improving the planet. This could compound the impact of planet-focused design if done properly. We're still exploring what this means, but it has the potential to be a key solution to the wicked problem of climate change, symbiotic beneficial design done for human, societal, and environmental health. So in my research, I aim for practical application of theory, bridging the worlds of industry and academia where I find myself. 3 key takeaways to note include, first, the importance of designing with to design effectively, basically citing Ron Wakari's approach of designing with, the possibility in employing designing with older adults in particular as a strategy for inclusive design, and finally, the tremendous potential of designing for human and potentially planetary health through eudaimonic design. So here are a few final thoughts for this NENA specific audience before wrapping up. This past week, I had the opportunity to attend a few COP26 summit related events that relate to my areas of interest and my background. Business events like ones by Accenture, architectural ones with the Global Eco Village Network, and early planning talks relating to the upcoming UK Design Council event this week. While the talks I participated in were interesting, I was shocked to hear how ungrounded, pie in the sky, and sometimes lackadaisical some seemed. They were talking about how to encourage better baby step behaviors without acknowledging the need for, let alone advise, how to enact big, bold change. I can see why youth protesters have deemed the summit a failure. They feel let down by world leaders and instead call upon the masses for action and greater accountability. With that in mind, and while reflecting on my work to date, as I begin the painful task of writing up my thesis, I've been considering historical and recent perspectives on human and planet-centric design and thoughts on how to do things better. Some thoughts are informed by more than human design professionals and academics today, such as Ron Wakari, whose recent book builds on his former work de-emphasizing human-centric design and encouraging an approach of designing with others, as I mentioned before. Other concepts consider modern philosophers of the past, including people like Heidegger, who explored concepts of interconnection in his work on being and time. It also includes the ancient philosophers such as Aristotle, whether considering eudaimonia, as I mentioned, or perhaps looking at his explorations on causality. And most important, there is the deep wisdom behind Aboriginal and First Nation knowledge, contributed to by people like Mary Graham, Tyson Yunkaporta, and others who have spoken at NENA this week. One reference I included here is by Sherry Mitchell, a Native American woman of the Penobscot tribe whose sovereign territory is found within the borders of the state of Maine in the US. In my work to date, I humbly state how I have observed similarities across all of these areas, how they relate to accountability, stewardship, interconnectedness, especially encouraging people to be their collective best selves together. Thus, instead of emphasizing differences across modes of thought, I hope to encourage what Mary Graham and Morgan Brigg proposed in their Aboriginal political philosophy piece, the one pictured here for ABC Religion and Ethics. Here, Graham and Brigg write, as we grapple with the challenge of climate change, they, the Aboriginal political concepts, show us that we do not have to inhabit the bleak chaos of the Anthropocene, as long as we consider the relations we have with the earth, its life forms, and with each other. So I'd like to end with a quote, and if there's time, a short story beautifully told by Sherry Mitchell, whose Sacred Instructions book I showed earlier. So Rhiannon, do we have 2 minutes? It's basically exactly 2 minutes how I edited things.
Would everyone be happy to stay on for 2 minutes? If you want to give a thumbs up. There's a couple of nods, I think that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Jenna.
Okay, great. Okay, so here is Mitchell's story of the Penobscot tribe's cannibal giant. The story was told in this podcast that I pictured here on Indigenous wisdom, shared with me by a Native American friend at home, and it was just shared yesterday, so it's pretty new. The story is a little over a minute long, and then Mitchell's follow-up commentary is less than a minute. So I hope to edit it properly and play it effectively for audio. Please let me know if we have any sound issues. I'll watch the chat in the meantime.
This episode of No Place Like...
And of course, the beginning didn't work as it was supposed to. All right, we'll try this again. Okay.
We have a figure in our mythology who is called Giwok, and Giwok is the cannibal giant. Giwok's role is one of protector of Mother Earth. And so Giwok sleeps deep in the forest and remains there, immobile, until he hears a very specific call from Mother Earth. And this call from Mother Earth informs him that human beings are consuming faster than she can produce and are harming her faster than she can heal, and that they have become a threat to life. And so when Giwok hears that specific call, he wakes up and he begins to move into society and lull the people into this false sense of security, and starts dancing them faster and faster and faster, and getting them to consume more and more and more until they consume themselves off the planet. And their behavior leads to their own extinction so that Mother Earth can replenish herself and begin to renew. Our elders tell us that Giwok is awake at this time, and that we are living in the time of the cannibal giant.
So that's the story. And then I just wanted to play a couple of her reflective thoughts right after, about 30 seconds.
And so the story of Giwok, the cannibal giant, is incredibly relevant at this time where we have to decide how we're going to move forward, because there's only one way for us to put Giwok back to sleep, and that's for us to wake up.
Okay. And so on that note, I'd like to leave it there and thank everybody for your time today. If you have interest in learning more about my work, please feel free to explore my publications or reach out for collaboration opportunities. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jenna. If we could give a warm Zoom round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for putting that link in the chat. I'll save that one now. Yeah, fascinating, fantastic. Good luck with your thesis. It sounds incredible. So
thank you.
Yeah, have fun writing that up. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us today.